Good day, grade 12 learners. Welcome to today's geography lesson. My name is Nomthandazo Malembe. This lesson is brought to you by the Northern Cape Department of Education in collaboration with Pagama Research and Development. So in today's topic, we're going to focus on the contribution of secondary sector to the South African economy. By the end of this lesson, learners, you should be able to define secondary sector. Secondly, you must know the examples of secondary sector. Then we're looking at the contribution of secondary sector in the South African economy. Then we're going to look at the types of industries. And then after, we will have some mapwork questions. The mapwork questions are based on the map of Queenstown. Then we start with our lesson today. So obviously, each and every time our lesson starts with a pre-knowledge baseline. So these are the things that you have learned in social sciences. So today we are talking about the secondary sector. Remember, it starts with our four sectors or the structure of the economy. It is built by four sectors. We have done the primary sector. So now we are in the second sector, which is your secondary sector. So we are saying secondary sector are the activities that are done in the urban areas. And secondly, the secondary sector, they depend on the primary sector to get the working material, which means without those raw material in the primary sector, the secondary sector won't be able to have work. Then we're talking about the secondary sector is involved in manufacturing and processing of raw material. And then we're looking at they can hire the skilled as well as the semi-skilled laborers. We have explained in our previous lessons what is a skilled and what is a semi-skilled, and we're gonna explain it again. So looking at the questions that are based on our pre-knowledge baseline, the first question you need to give, in which areas does the secondary activities done? For 1 mark. Then second question, you name the sector that supply the secondary sector with the working material. For 2 marks, just to name that sector. Then the third question, you need to describe the secondary sector. Then fourth question, you name the kind of a labor that is hired in the secondary sector, 2 times 1. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes to work on this activity. And then after 5 minutes, we're going to do the corrections. Right, I hope everyone is done. Looking at our first question, in which area do secondary activities take place? They are happening in urban areas. Then secondly, the sector that supplies secondary sector with the working material, we're looking at the primary sector. Remember the primary sector, it's the one that deals with the raw material. Then they supply it to secondary sector for the secondary sector to manufacture it and to process it. Third question, you describe the secondary sector. If you were to describe the secondary sector, it is involved in the manufacturing as well as the processing of raw material. Fourth question, you name the kind of labor that is hired in the secondary sector. They can hire the skilled labor and they can hire the semi-skilled labor. So those are the labors that are catered for. And then we're looking at our terms for today. We're going to look at the skilled labor and the semi-skilled labor. Again, to get the difference between the two, when we're talking about the labor, we're talking about the workers. So workers are categorized into two. It's either you are skilled or you are semi-skilled. So when we are saying a skilled labor, we're talking about a worker who has a specific set of skills or a specialized knowledge that are usually being obtained through the formal training. So which means you need to be trained further in order for you to be called a skilled. And after training, you must be awarded with a certificate so that you can be called a skilled labor. Then secondly, we're talking about the semi-skilled labor. So the semi-skilled labor, we are talking about a worker who does a routine task. When you're saying the routine task, this worker doesn't have a particular a skill or the particular job that he or she is doing. So he can do anything. It's a general work. So someone who is not skilled or who is not trained to do a specialized work. So there you've got pictures. One, it's the one who is a skilled, and the other one is the one who is semi-skilled, because these ones, they do routine a task, which means they are helping those ones who are skilled. Then we said we will be able to define deeply what is secondary sector. So secondary sector is the transformation of raw material produced by the primary sector into a finished good. So they receive the material as raw as it is, then they transform it into a finished good. For example, they receive a coal from the primary sector, then they transform this coal into either an electricity or into a petrol. So it is now a final good. Again, they receive what else that they can receive maize from the primary as raw as it is. Then they transform it into a maize meal or into cornflakes, or depending on whatever a product. So we are also saying the secondary sector, they are involved in the processing as well as in the manufacturing and the construction companies. So as you can see there, these are the industries, or this is the sector that we are talking about, because secondary sector, we are talking about the industry. Right, these industries, they are dealing with the manufacturing of new cars, which means we are not talking about the part. They are just manufacturing the car as it is and the brand new cars. So we call these industries a automotive. So hence you can see there in the picture, they are busy manufacturing a car. And not only the car, as long as it got wheels and it can move, because we're talking about cars, we're talking about trucks, your buses, as well as your motorcycles. So it's the first example. The second example, we said we have construction as the example of a secondary sector. So when we're talking about the construction, these are the industries that build our buildings as well as construct our roads. So hence you can see there the picture, they are busy with a certain building there. If you see those structures, so obviously there will be many floors in that building. So it's the construction, because they are manufacturing or they are processing into a final product. They are taking a cement that is being done with the coal and they manufacture it into a final product, which could be a building or the flat or any just normal house, or it can be turned into the road. Remember, we said they take the raw material and turn it or transform it into a final product. So example number 3, we have the food processing. So again, we've got industries who are dealing with the food processing. So in the food processing, they will start with the cooking. And then after that, they do the canning. So this cooked food, it will be put into cans, as we are saying it's a food canning. So there are so many products that we get nowadays as a canned food. We're talking about fish, we're talking about cool baked beans. There are so many. Even the fruits are being canned. So there are industries who are dealing with the food processing in terms of the food canning. Then we have the third, which is the manufacturing. When we're talking about the manufacturing, we are talking about the industries that are taking raw material and use it into a manual labor, or they are using the machines so that it can become a final product. And then we've got the textile. Again, the textile, it's either they can use an animal skin to do the final product as a clothing, and also they can use a natural or a synthetic materials. As you can see there are people who are busy making clothes or who are sewing. So it also part of the example of the secondary sector. Then we will have our first activity. Our first activity, you need to define the term secondary sector. And then after, you need to differentiate between a skilled worker and a semi-skilled worker for 2 marks. And then after, you need to name and you describe the examples of secondary sector. So you name and you describe the example of the secondary sector. So the mark allocation there, it is 4 times 2, which means you need to give 4 examples and then you describe them. So I'm going to give you 6 minutes to work on this activity. And then after 6 minutes, we're going to do the corrections. Right? I hope we are all done. So let us look at our answers. So the first one, we're supposed to define what is a secondary sector. Remember, there are so many ways that you can use, as long as you emphasize that it's to transform a raw material into a final product. So here it says it is the transformation of raw material produced by the primary sector into a finished goods. Then secondly, if you were to give the difference or to differentiate between the skilled worker as well as the semi-skilled worker. So your semi-skilled, we're talking about the worker that is not trained or the worker that is not qualified to do a certain job. So he or she is given a general work. Then we're talking about the skilled worker. So the skilled worker is the worker that is trained and qualified to do the job. So most of the time, when it comes to the payment, the one who is getting a higher salary, it's the one that is skilled because he or she has a certificate and also he or she underwent that certain training that qualifies him or her to earn a higher salary as compared to the semi-skilled. So you cannot say you just want to be a semi-skilled so that you can do the general job, because you will be getting less income as compared to the one who is skilled. Then the third question, whereby you are supposed to name and describe the example of a secondary sector. Number one, we said is an automotive. Automotive, we're talking about the industries that manufacture or the industries that build the cars. Not only the cars, but as long as it has wheels and it can move, because we're talking about cars, the trucks, the buses, as well as your motorcycle. Then secondly, it's the manufacturing. So manufacturing, we're talking about the industries that deals with a raw material and manufacture or turn it into a final product. Then we're talking about the textile. So textile, these are the industries that deals with the clothing. they can use natural or synthetic material. And we have the food processing. So food processing, we said it's the industry that deals with the processing of food, and it can be cooked and it can be canned. Then we're talking about the construction. Construction are the industries that can build the buildings as well as construct the roads. So any of the four. Then we're going to the contribution of the secondary sector into the South African economy. So why it is important for us to have the secondary sector. So we said point number one, it's job creation. So when you're talking about job creation, we've already emphasized that this sector, it is able to cater for those ones who are trained and for those ones who are not trained, which means the employment is large in this sector because each and everyone can get the employment, provided that he or she is skilled or unskilled. Then we're looking at our second point, the economic empowerment of previously disadvantaged group. So you will remember there back then that the group that was disadvantaged, we're talking about the Black economic. So this sector now, it is able to cater for everyone. As long as you are qualified or even not qualified, you can be hired. So now there are no restrictions, especially when it comes to the senior positions. As long as you are qualified, you can be able to have those positions. So it is catering for everyone and it is empowering everyone. Then your third point, we are looking at the increase in the raw material production, which means now we have a variety of a material that is being produced into a final good from the raw material. Then we're looking at the acceleration of growth and the development. So when we are talking about the acceleration of growth, because there are industries that develop because of the raw material, and we're looking at the development as a country because there are more and more people who are employed, which means now there are more people who can generate or who can be taxed so that they can generate towards our GDP. And also in terms of the development, we are looking at our infrastructure that will be developed. And we are looking at the country as a whole because we will have more investors who will be able to develop our country. Then contributions to the GDP. Remember, the more the industries they are developed, which means there will be more companies who will be contributing towards a tax, and there will be more people who will be hired as well. Both the individual and the companies, their money that will be generated, it will be contributed towards our GDP. Then we're looking at the types of industries. So in total, we have 7 types of industries. We said we are talking about the secondary sector. So when it comes to the secondary sector, we say it involves in the manufacturing as well as in the processing of the raw material. So where does this manufacturing as well as processing of raw material done? It is done through these types of industries. So we've got number 1, I will say number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, and number 7. So in total, we have 7 industries that are being formulated or that are being stimulated because of the secondary sector. So number 1, we have the heavy industry. So the heavy industry in general, these are the industries that use heavy machines, and these are the industries that are also heavy on pollution, which means they pollute more. Then we're looking at our raw-orientated material. So these are the industries that are located next to the raw material. And also, these are the industries that deals with bulk. Then we have number 3 as the light industry. So the light industries, these are the industries that use light machines, or they are using small machines. And also, these industries can be located next to the CBD. Why? Because they are less on pollution as compared to the heavy one who's supposed to be located away from the CBD and away from the residential areas because they are high on pollution. Then number 4, we've got the market-orientated industries. So these are the industries that's supposed to be closer to the consumer or to the market. So why are they supposed to be closer? It's because of the products that they are dealing with. They have products that need to be sold fast and every day. Then we've got the footloose industries. So the footloose industries, these are the industries that can be located anywhere. As they can be located anywhere, they use materials that do not expire, or their products, they do not expire. So you can think of the examples. What are the products or the goods that can be involved in these industries that does not have an expiry date? Then we have our number 6, which is our ambiguous industry. So the ambiguous industry, again, they can be located anywhere. And they're supposed to be everywhere. Why? Because these are the industries that deals with the network. Remember, each and every area, they need a network. We're talking about the cell phone network. So you can think of the examples of these companies, your Vodacom, your Cell C, your MTN, as well as your Telkom. So we call them the ambiguous industry. Then number 7, it has an alternative name. We call it a break of bulk. It's a break of bulk, or it's a bridge industry. So these are the type of industries that's supposed to be located next to the raw material, and they produce their products in bulk. And also we say these industries, they're supposed to have 2 modes. We say one mode of transport replaces another mode. Remember, we have learned about the mode of transport in grade 8. There is an air mode where we're talking about the aeroplane, and there is a road when we're talking about the trucks as well as the cars, and there is a water mode when we're talking about the ship or the harbor. So one mode of transport replaces the other. The goods, they can be received into the harbor and being transported through the roads via the trucks as well as the vans or the cars, and it can be transported to the airport. So there is one mode that has replaced the other. But most of all, they are using a bulk, and they're supposed to be next to the raw material. So why they're supposed to be next to the raw material? Because they want to minimize the cost of traveling. So in our next lesson, we're gonna go thoroughly on the types of industries, because you need to know each and everything about these industries. And you must have the proper notes as well, because you can have these industries as 7 marks or 8 marks, or you can have them with 15 marks. So it is important that you know them thoroughly. So in our next lesson, I'm going to give you the description of each and every industry, and also then we do the difference between the industries that are like similar. Let's say, for example, we take number 1, which is a heavy industry and a light industry. So there is a difference between the two. And also there is a difference between a break of bulk or the bridge, as well as the raw material. Then we have the difference between number 6 and number 5, where we say ubiquitous as well as footloose. Yes, they have something in common when it comes to these two, your ubiquitous and your footloose. We said both of these industries, they can be located anywhere. But now the difference is the footloose, we are talking about the product or the goods that do not expire. So I hope we have thought of something. What are those goods that do not expire and they can be located anywhere? And then we said the ubiquitous, they can be located anywhere because they are needed. There is no area that doesn't need a network. So we're talking about the networking companies, you know them. Then the industry, that is like a standalone. It's a market orientated. So, but then again, you can compare market orientated with the raw material because there could be some differences and there could be some similarities. So we need to compare the heavy as well as the light because you can get the question that says compare the two. So you must know the heavy, as the word says, heavy, which means they use the heavy equipment or the heavy machines. And they are also heavy on pollution, which means they pollute more. And they're supposed to be located far away on the outskirts. You will remember when we were doing the settlement. So why they're supposed to be located far away in the outskirts? Because of the pollution. Remember, as they pollute, it means the environment or the air or the atmosphere around that area, it will be polluted. So in order to save people from being polluted every day. And also, these industries, your heavy industry, they require a flat area or a gentle slope. And also, they require a large area because they are a heavy industry. And when it comes to the light, it's the opposite. They are less on pollution and they use light machines, as the word says, light. And you must know their location. They are located next to the CBD because they are harmless. So you need to think of the examples again. So our next lesson, it will be based on the types of industry. You need to be able to describe them. You need to be able to give the examples. When you're talking about the heavy industry, what are the industries that comes to your mind that could be a heavy industry? So again, I am giving you something to go and research before you can even come to the lesson, so that when you research, then when we discuss it, you will remember, oh, I have learned about this. Then we said your raw material orientated, they're supposed to be next to the raw material because you cannot have a raw material on one area and there is an industry on another area. It's supposed to be located where the raw material was discovered. Then we have your market-orientated industries. These ones, we say they're supposed to be closer to the consumer or to the customers. Why? Because they have goods that are perishable, which means they expire immediately and they're supposed to be used fast. So you can think of those examples. Then we have your bridge or your break of bulk. So you mustn't forget, it's only industry that has an alternative name. For 1 mark, an examiner can give bridge, then they say give the alternative name. So you know it's the break of bulk. So we're gonna learn more about the types of industries. So based on the information that I've gave you, we have the second activity. So our second activity is based on the types of industries. So you've got the names and The types of industries, you've got your food-loose industry, your raw material orientated, your ubiquitous, your light, your bridge, your market orientated, and your heavy industry. So you must be able to name all of them, and you must be able to define all of them, because sometimes you will get them as these ones. So this is our questions. They will give you the definitions. Then you're supposed to identify by reading the definition on which industry does this definition belongs to. So you've got 5 questions there. The first one, the industries that produce perishable goods. We have discussed about that industry. Then secondly, the industries that can be located anywhere and are not restricted by the location of the market or the raw materials. Then third question, the industries that can be located anywhere, again, without an effect from the factors such as resources or transport. Then question number 4, the industries located between the source of raw material and the market, which is the consumer. Then number 5, the industries that occupy a small space and located in the city center. So again, you read the definition, then you match it with the industry. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. So it's 1 minute per question. Read the definition, then you match it with the industry. So after 5 minutes, we're going to do the corrections together. Right, girls and boys, let's hope everyone is done. So we've got our first answer. It says the industries that produce perishable goods. We said it's a market orientated. So remember, the market orientated, they're supposed to be closer to the raw material. And also, they're supposed to be closer to the consumers. Why closer to the consumers? Because they have the perishable goods, which means the things that they are selling or that they are servicing. It is things that are perishable first, and it's supposed to be used fast. Hence, we call it a market. Then, secondly, it's the industries that can be located anywhere, are not restricted by the location of the market or the raw material. It's the ubiquitous. Remember, the ubiquitous, we say they are dealing with the network. So they can be located anywhere, and they are not restricted by the location, because each and every location is supposed to have a network. And they are not dealing with any raw material. Then, number 3, the industries that can be located anywhere without an effect from the factors such as resources or the transport. So this one, it's a food-loose. Remember the food-loose, we said they are dealing with the goods or with the services that do not expire. So again, I hope you have thought of some of the examples that they can fall in the food-loose. Then we're looking at the 4th one, which is the industries located between the source of raw material and the market, which is the consumer. So here we are talking about the bridge or the break of bulk. Remember, we said the bridge, it has an alternative name of the break of bulk. So when you see break of bulk, you must know that we are talking about the bridge, because the examiner can use any of the names. Then we have our number 5, the industries that occupy a small space and can be located in the city center. We're talking about the light industry. Then we come to our third activity. Our third activity is based on the map work. So I hope by now you can be able to organize your maps. We are using the map of Queenstown. So I've already got the picture there. So if it's not clear enough, you can be able to use the original map. So we've got the topographic map there of the Queenstown. And also we've got the orthophoto, which is also taken from the topographic. And then our first question, it says, calculate the area covered by the orthophoto map as demarcated in red or black on the topographic map in kilometer squared. So it is kilometer squared and it is demarcated in red or black on the topographic map using the following measurements. So they've already given you the measurements. There is no need to go and measure again. So the length is 4.2 centimeter and the breadth is 3.8 centimeter. Then the question is saying calculate the area. Remember the area that we are talking about, it's this one. It can be covered in red and it can be black. So this whole area, as it's seen, it is small on the topographic map. Why? Because it has been reduced 50,000 times. Then this small block, it is equivalent to the whole orthophoto map. So why? Because the orthophoto map has only been reduced 10,000 times. So whatever that is on the orthophoto map, it is located in that box. So now we need to calculate that area. So in calculating, the formula is area is equal to length times breadth. Remember, you started to do this calculation in grade 8. So the length is the side that is long and the breadth is the side that is short. So already you have 4.2 as an evidence that it is a long side, and we have 3.8 as an evidence that it is a short side. So even if you forgot, should it be, it was 5 marks. If it was 5 marks, they was not going to give you the measurements. So you need to do them on your own. Remember, when we are doing the measurement, you start from 0 up until the next point. So the side that will be longer, that will be your length. And the side that will be shorter, that will be your breadth. So our answer is supposed to be on a kilometer squared. And we are given these 2 measurements. And the marks allocated is 3 marks. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to work on this calculation. And then after 3 minutes, we're going to do the correction. Right, my beautiful learners, I hope we are all done. So let us go through the corrections together. So as I've said, you were already given the measurements, so which means there is no need to remeasure them on your own because you're already given and it won't be allocated any marks. So what you need to do, the type of map that you are using is a topographic map. And the unit that your answer is supposed to be, it's a kilometer squared. So therefore, you take the formula, it says length times breadth, which means you start with the length. You have learned before that if you want to convert the centimeter into a kilometer, we use 0.5. Hence, you see this 0.5. Yeah? So 4.2 for the measurement of length times 0.5. And what other learners do, they simply take the 4.2 times the 3.8, the measurement as raw as they are. of which you will get the wrong answer because you need to convert this centimeter into a kilometer. Sometimes they can say your answer is supposed to be on a meter squared. Remember, if it's supposed to be on a meter squared, you're supposed to use 500. In grade 10, we have learned how to convert the scale. As we're talking about 0.5, where is it coming from? So 4.2 times 0.5 will give you 2.1. Then multiply, because you need to do this separate and then again separate. So 3.8, the one that we are given for breadth, times 0.5. Why 0.5? Because our answer is supposed to be on a kilometer squared. So 3.8 times 0.5 will give us 1.9 kilometer. Thereafter, it's where you can multiply the two. So it's the answer of length times the answer of breadth, as it is in the formula, length times breadth. So therefore, we have the kilometer and another kilometer. Hence, we will be able to have a kilometer squared. So you were given 3 marks. The 3 marks is for the answer of the length and the answer of the breadth and the final answer. So that's where you get that 3 marks. So your 2.1 times your 1.9 is equal to 3.99 kilometer squared. So I hope you got that correct. Then moving right along, you are still on the map work. So second question, you need to calculate the straight line distance in meters. So now it's the meters between the point 7 in block D2 and the point 6 in block D4 on the orthophoto map. Hence, in grade 8, we have learned about the 2 sets of maps so that you can be able to know which one is the orthophoto and which one is a topographic, and how you identify the two. So we are given 2 blocks, which is D2 and D4. So let's go back to our orthophoto map. So it's line 6 and line 7. So we need to calculate the distance between this one. Remember, you place your ruler from number 6 at 0 up until you reach the second point at number 7. So this is how you're supposed to place your ruler. Then let us go to the calculation. It says the distance is supposed to be on meters, and you are using an orthophoto map. So the formula you are given is the actual distance is equal to map distance times a scale. You are given 2 marks because you're supposed to do only 2 things there. So if you can do the measurement and then you do the rest of the calculation. Then number 3, if you hike from point 6 in block D4 to point 7 in block D2, one will be negotiating A. There is a type of slope there. Remember, in grade 8 and 9, again in social science, you have learned about the types of slope, your steep slope, your gentle slope, your convex, as well as your concave. So you need to go and identify the type of slope that you will be negotiating there. So again, I'm going to give you 6 minutes because you still need to do your measurement. Then you still need to remind yourself what measurement you will be using when you want to convert the scale into a meters and you are using an orthophoto map. Then again, you're going to go through the 0.6 and 0.7 that you need to determine the type of a slope. So after 6 minutes, we're going to do the corrections. Right, girls and boys, I hope we are all done. So let us go through our answers. The first question or the second question, you're calculating the actual distance. So there, I've already shown you on how you're supposed to place your 30 centimeter ruler. You start from 0 up until the next point. And the answer, it was supposed to be on a meters and using the orthophoto map. Then the map distance there is 9,5. So therefore, remember, our rulers are not the same. There is a 3-inch difference, which means some might get 9,4 and others might get 9,5 and others might get 9,6. So each and every time we allow for 3 different inches because our rulers are not the same. So for those ones who've got a 9,5 or 9,4 or 9,6, so obviously our answers won't be the same as long as you are within the range, which means if you got 9,3, you are out. If you got 9,7, you are also out. You must be within the range. So because we need to convert this scale into a meter, then we use the 100. Remember, where do we get the 100? By converting the scale of 1:10,000. So we say 9,5 times 100, then the answer is 950 meters. So it's the correct measurement as well as the correct answer. So for sure, if you got the 9,4, your answer will be 940. If you got 9,6, your answer will be 960. Then our third question, it says, if you hike from the point 6 in block D4 to point 7 in block D2, one will be negotiating a convex slope. So let us go through how you identify a convex slope. So you are starting from 6 up until you reach 7. So because here at 6, the contour lines are far apart. And then as you move along, the contour lines are close. On this side, then it's a convex. Remember, if it was from this point where it's starting with the contour lines being close and then afterwards being far apart, then it could be a convex. Which means if it was only in this block and our contour lines are close, then it was going to be a steep slope. And again, should it be it was only in this area where the contour lines are far, we're going to say the slope is gentle. So I hope you remember that. Your concave, they start with the contour lines being closer, representing a steep, and then as they move, they are far apart. That's the concave. But if they're starting with the contour lines far apart and then after they become close, that's your convex. So hence our answer is convex. Then we're going to have our homework. You need to define the following terms. Likewise, you're supposed to know each and every lesson you will have a homework because you must practice each and every time, even at home, so that you don't forget. And it will also make your studying easy because imagine you have learned something in about a week or a month, and then after that you need to write a test or a class activity. By that time, you will be forgotten already. So while it is still fresh on your mind, so it is important. So the first question, you need to define the following terms: the secondary sector, the skilled labor, the semi-skilled. And then remember, in geography, each and every definition, it gives you 2 marks. Hence, it is 2 marks that will be times 3, which means it's 6 marks. Then question number 2, it says, give the 4 examples of the secondary sector. We have learned about the 4 examples of the secondary sector. You are not explaining them. You are just giving the examples. Then question number 3, you need to discuss the contribution of secondary sector to the South African economy. 3 times 2, which means you give 3 contribution so that you can get that 6 marks, right? So if you were to summarize what we have learned today, you have learned defining the secondary sector. We have learned about the examples of the sector, and we have learned about how secondary sector contributes to the South African economy. And we have looked into the naming or the types of industries, and we have done some map work activities. So we have came to an end of our lesson today. Hopefully you have enjoyed the lesson. So don't forget your homework and stay tuned for the next lesson.